Hey everyone, welcome to the Daily Word. I'm really glad that you've joined me. Our daily word today comes from Psalm 30. I'd like to share verses 6 and 7 with you, and then let's think just a bit today together about God's discipline. When I was prosperous, I said, "Nothing can stop me now. Your favor, O Lord, made me as secure as a mountain. Then you turned away from me, and I was shattered." Now, David was immensely successful in lots of different ways, musically, poetically, as a soldier in particular, a soldier and a military leader and king. And of course, it was David's success that caused Saul to be inflamed in jealousy and to come so hard after David. It was because of his jealousy. Saul was king, but certainly David was more admired by the people. But you see here, David recalls a time when in his prosperity, he became puffed up in pride. He assumed that his present success would always be, that it would always be like this. And he began then a process of turning to pride. He assumed that this success would always be, assumed perhaps that he was entitled for it to always be. And making that assumption, he began to shift his confidence, his trust from the giver to the gift. And of course, this is a great danger for all of us. Shifting our trust from the giver to the gift, then he eventually, it seems, began trusting in his own success, thinking that he had actually created that success, then grew in pride. And this is a process that I think many of us can recognize in our lives. And God brings this humbling, divine discipline upon David's life. But of course, as we're reading about this, to say, "Then you turned away from me," even while we say that, while David says that, I think the acknowledgement must be there that, well, actually, it was preceded by David's turning away from God. He had already begun that turn, and what we see God doing is essentially allowing David to experience the consequences of his moving his trust, growing in pride and moving his trust from the Lord to things, to created things, to his own abilities and so on. And God is going to allow him to experience the truth of his insufficiency and the insufficiency of the things that he had been putting his trust in. It made me think of Hebrews 12, and I'd certainly recommend you flip over and read a bit in 12, but Hebrews 12 talks about God's discipline. And this is in verse 10. "For our earthly fathers disciplined us for a few years, doing best they knew how. But God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in His holiness. No discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way." And then if you continue forward a bit in that chapter, he says in verse 25, "Be careful that you do not refuse to listen to the one who's speaking. Pay attention when God is disciplining you." And then in verse 27, "This means that all of creation will be shaken and removed, so that only unshakable things remain. Since we're receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping Him with holy fear and awe, for our God is a devouring fire." You see, the Lord is disciplining David to teach him that truly the Lord is the only unshakable thing. He is the only thing that we can actually base our lives on. And when the Lord disciplines us, when He gets our attention, when He allows us to feel that space that we've been putting between us, when He allows us to feel the insufficiency and understand the shakable nature of so many things that we put our trust in, we truly must listen, and we must listen with gratitude that the Lord is so gracious to us. Listen now to Psalm 30, verse 5. For His anger lasts only a moment, but His favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes with the morning. Thanks be to God that He cares enough about us to discipline us. And thanks be to God that He has no interest in destroying us. He has no interest in harming us, that His interests are only for our good. And so, as we turn to Him, He indeed does receive us and restore the joy of our salvation, the joy of the Lord that Jesus Christ says brings about the fullness of our joy. Thanks be to God. Amen. Amen. And friends, until we have a chance to speak again, I pray that God would bless you and that He would keep you.